Action!
What's going on? Welcome back to the Reimagining Worship podcast. Listen, this is your first time here. Yo, thanks for coming back. Come checking us out. This is a podcast where we are redreaming, rethinking, recreating, thinking about what worship could be, thinking about what does it mean to have a unified sound in such a polarized culture. So I want to welcome you here. Yo, check us out on Facebook. We have our Facebook group called Reimagining Worship, where we have a community of folk there that are continuing even this conversation of what it looks like to reimagine worship. But today I want to jump right into it. This is episode 2 of season 2 of the Reimagining Worship podcast, and today I want to start with something unique. And this one, the audience is different. So. Usually this podcast, and I record primarily for creatives or for musicians or for worship leaders, worship pastors, in that kind of creative space, especially from a Sunday morning church experience. But today this is kind of for the folk that do the hiring of creatives. These are for the executive pastors or the pastors who are looking for creatives to be on your team. And what I've recognized over the years is that creatives can get treated like a means to an end, or like they not actual people, or like all of these kind of there's been some crazy stories I've heard over the years as it pertains to how creatives are treated in the church world, and this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about today. So today I want to talk about 3 ways that you can care for creatives. Now, maybe you don't have any creatives in your church right now, but you're looking to develop a culture that is conducive and welcoming for creatives. This is for you. Or maybe you're in a church context now that you're like, your creatives are leaving, they're burnt out, they're exhausted, they're rolling out. This is for you also. So I just want to talk about 3 simple ways that you can care for creatives. Firstly, the first big one is, I don't want anything, this is going to sound simple and cliche, but like, work with me and let's roll. Treat them like the person they are and not a means to an end. Because creatives are usually effective in producing content in whatever space, whether that's music or visual or digital or whatever the case may be, because they do that well, we can sometimes kind of put them in this category of just getting things done, or just doing something, or being busy. And we can almost dehumanize them just because we want the output. And especially now, and we see it, like the pace of social media, the pace of content, the mass amounts of content that's coming out. Like, it's like we got to keep turning over more and more content. And in the meantime, between time, like, there's a person behind that keyboard, a person behind that computer screen, a person on that stage that is exhausted, that's broken, that's hurting, that's just looking for some kind of human connection. I think it's interesting. When we listen, if we're honest, we understand that creatives have a more emotional bones in their body, in our body, I'll say, and it's real. And I think it's part of that feeling, that emotion, that helps us create in the way that we do. But knowing that, we have to understand that we have to understand how to care for them in those spaces, how to meet them there, and to even sometimes pull them up from that overly emotional space. Now, everything has to be emotional, but it is good to get down there. A pastor friend of mine said this week to sit in the well. To sit in the well with them for a little bit. So the first big one is really like viewing them as people, like not just a means to an end, not just someone who's going to create the flyer or the graphic. Things still got to get done. Progress still has to happen, but treat them like the person that they are, and not a means to an end. But with that, because things have to get done, part of those meetings, and when you're sitting in the well with them, if you will, set realistic goals for what you want to get accomplished. This can produce like really healthy conversation. Like, what's realistic? We need an EP done by the end of the week. A real creative is going to try to do it. Me, I'm going to try to do it. But these aren't realistic goals and expectations. So kind of create that environment to be able to have genuine, honest conversations of like, what does it take to go, like what's it take to make to make a sermon graphic? What does it take to make a bumper video? And it's good for the person who's asking, the requester, to even understand some of that process, because it's a lot involved. It's a lot involved to be able to turn over this amount of creative stuff in this 7-day Sundays Coming turnaround. So just having a space where you can have an open, honest conversation about like, these are some realistic goals, and then have the creative to say like, hey, listen, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, or I'm not going to be able to make that deadline, or I'm not going to, like, all right, well, what's a more feasible deadline, so we can see what needs to get done, what needs to be outsourced. That's a big one, but I'm gonna say it to the land. What needs to be outsourced, and what needs to be accomplished in house. So find out where some of those lines are. Find out where those lines are, where you can create some realistic expectations. The third and the last one, I told you these were going to be shorter this season. Like, I just want to kind of get right to the point, real punchy stuff that's real practical. The third one is have an open and honest conversation with them about financial compensation. Again, if you notice, even the last two is just really about communication, building that relationship, building that trust, building that bond. Or all three of them actually, but they're all rooted in deep relationship. You need to have honest conversations about compensation. If you can't afford to financially compensate them, then communicate that. But secondly, find other ways to care for them, whether that be a piece of chicken, like, hey, we come over to the house for dinner, like find ways to care for them. Like, that's what I said in part one, or in the first point. Find ways to be able to care. Find ways to be able to compensate in other ways, but have an honest and open conversation about compensation. I'll make this argument, not that creatives don't need to be paid, but oftentimes, like, it's that relationship, and it's that time, it's that discipleship, it's that care, it's that one-on-one time that they can be able to grow and develop. Like, let's find other ways to compensate, whether they through equipment, or computer upgrades, or data upgrades, or something small like a SD drive or a external hard, something to even be able to show that you care. But again, have this open and honest conversation about compensation. The two practical take-home things that I wanted to encourage us with was, one, it will be foolish to say that, okay, we get it after a 6.5-minute talk on how to care for creatives by a joker like me. So I would encourage those who are not familiar in that creative space to join some creative groups, like even online, like CRTV or something like that. And check them out on their Facebook group, and even just kind of skim through the stuff, see what they're communicating, see how they're communicating, kind of just entrench yourself in that world. So join other groups to hear from other creatives outside of your context, outside of your church, other folks that can do that. And secondly, these days you can outsource darn near everything, anything and everything. So see, based on the second point, which was setting realistic goals and expectations, if your creative can't do 3 different sermon series this month, then see what they can do. If let's say if they can do 1, and see about outsourcing 2. So you can outsource anything that you Vive Media, you got church visual church media, you got Sunday social. There are so many resources out there to be able to support the church, and to be able to support creatives, and to be able to support the pastors and all the good stuff. So listen, those are the 3 things. 1, treat them like the person they are, not a means to an end. 2, set realistic goals and expectations for what you want them to get accomplished. And 3, have open and honest conversations about financial compensation. Listen, I hope this was helpful. If this was helpful, please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Every week we are dropping another podcast. Next week, listen. I'm going to tell y'all a secret. Don't tell nobody else. Next week, we're doing a special one-off podcast. I know I said I wasn't doing a bunch of interviews this season, but one topic that came up and is how women who are worship leaders. How do they operate, or how can they flow in male-dominated spaces? Woo! Telling you, when I saw it. So I'm excited. I have two phenomenal worship leaders that'll be joining me for next week. But just stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. You want to come back for that. I'm excited about it. So listen, like, share, subscribe. Check us out on our Facebook group. Until next time.